and that shadow mapped, like high res texture with soft shadows, whatever, like engine that I can't find anymore. I just mentioned. They used to have a playable demo. I swear I remember that the layout of whatever the level was in the demo was based off of some like Quake 3 level or something. But as far as I'm aware, it was not in any way like directly related to Quake 3 or anything like that. I don't know. Like I said, that on its own, I think it was like 2011 or something. Um, and I don't know. I'm trying to like I'm being a bit more abbreviated than I might normally be, but I'm trying to just I just want to make a couple quick videos, and I'm actually trying to like more use the pause feature on my recording software, and I haven't seen it have any issues yet. But sometimes I'll sit there and linger a little bit while I'm thinking about shit, and I try to remove as much of that as possible before the editing process. And I've gotten better with it, and I've actually gotten to where I pretty much always hit like 15 minutes on the money, and I don't have to do a whole lot of editing when I do my videos. It's all automated with scripting language, like or in like a bash script, like Linux nerd shit or whatever. But I wanted to make this video a little bit more about some other shit I was thinking of, where I was looking into all this different um where I'd mentioned like more tier and this and that. That was something I thought about that I forgot to mention on one of the last ones. I think the reason I didn't know that there was a more tier 3 and 4 is because they actually had different names in the United States, which it always annoys me when they do shit like that. But it made me think of other games like that, and I've been talking about different like slavjank type of stuff so much lately anyway. Something that it reminded me of was this game called Boiling Point Road to Hell, because the Russian or whatever name of it is like xenus or whatever, and then Boiling Point is the subtitle. But in English, it's Boiling Point Road to Hell, and I always misremember it as Hell's Highway. But that's the subtitle of one of the Brothers in Arms games, and I think it's the third one, but I only had one, and I think maybe two. I don't remember. But, just like Painkiller, Brothers in Arms, like Boiling Point, I still have my original disc somewhere. Because I got the game back in 2005 when it was new. And that game was so ahead of its fucking time. But they did shit like that with that game, right? So, like, they changed the name of it in English, but then also in it, like every other release, it's called Columbia, but in the English release, it's called like Realia or something like that. And I remember back in the day that different stuff I saw speculated that it was set in Cuba or something, because it's very clearly supposed to be some Latin American country. But I read pretty early on that it's actually meant to be Colombia. And I seen a comment because I was thinking about that. I went and looked up videos of it, and somebody in the comments said they're Colombian, and they thought the game was pretty good. And I left a comment. I'll never bother going back to read it, but so I was basically wondering. I mean, probably already the answer is obvious, but it's like, are Colombians really offended by the name of it being Colombia? Because like, why else would they like censor it or whatever you want to call it in English? And it reminds me of with Hitman 2 Silent Assassin. They have all these levels set in like India type of stuff or whatever. They got like the Sikh Hindu, the Sikh turbans and all that stuff. And I seen an Indian guy on a YouTube video mention that they just thought, like where he's from, they just thought it was cool that they got to see, Sikhs in a video game, right? Now, of course, the PC libtard whatever shit is what got the game censored. And that's actually why some versions of the game, like the Steam version, They have a later patch version. The GOG one's not censored, but they took out stuff of like, like Vishnu and like, like Shiva or whatever different shit in the game. But it also broke the game in various ways. So it was worse than nothing, but then at the same time, Indians weren't even offended by it. There's different areas that look like places where like, stuff in real life happened, but as far as I can tell, real Indians don't give a shit. But that's probably their same answer. But as far as I can tell, like when Mario had a sombrero on the front of a Mario game, and everybody got offended except Mexicans who loved it because they were like represented or whatever. I don't know. I get tired of revisionist shit like that, but um, I've been playing that game since 2005. I don't play that. It's been a long time. Sort of like Iron Storm. That's a French developed game, but it's from 2002. I first played it in 2003, but you know, it had been 10 years since the last time I had played it. But Boiling Point, I can't even remember, but I do remember I had it back in the day. And it had to be like a budget FPS in the States, because that's usually how a lot of these games were. They would get re-released essentially as like budget games in the United States. So like Groove Games, different shit like that. A lot of games would actually, they would be like, foreign games or whatever like that. But when they were sold here, they might change their name or like whatever other bullshit. But for me, a good proxy if I would like a game or not is if it cost 20, 30, 10, $20 brand new. It was probably a good game. But I remember having it back in the day, and yeah, it was pretty buggy. It was kind of hilarious. But holy fuck, that game was so ahead of its time, you know. And there was only a couple guys working on it, from what I read. But people will say, "Oh, it crashed a lot and this and that." Well, dude, everything back in the Windows XP days crashed all the fucking time, right? Everything crashed. Like Painkiller had problems, Far Cry had problems, Half-Life 2 had a ton of problems too. And a huge part of it was, back in the day, kernel mode drivers, especially Realtek. If you had like, Realtek audio, um, game, blue screening used to be just a common thing, and it's thankfully way less common now. And a lot of these games nowadays, even if they haven't been updated at all, actually they run better than they did back in the day. But most of the problems with Boiling Point, I wouldn't really say is its fault. I think it's kind of unfair how people judge the game, and I think a lot of it is due to they don't understand game design, they don't understand level design. If you truly love video games and you have an eye for art and like technical ability, it's mind blowing what that game achieved. Because a lot of people will look at it and think it looks like Far Cry 2, and other people have already said this, but it came out years before Far Cry 2. Back in the day, it's not even Far Cry. People compare it to Far Cry, but no, dude, this is massive open world, and everything just works seamlessly. It's like fucking Grand Theft Auto games. GTA 5 couldn't pull it off. GTA 4 for sure couldn't. Right? Rage, id Software Rage, all this texture streaming, blurriness, pop-in stuff. Go watch speedruns of this fucking game. And what's kind of crazy about it is they can beat the game in less than 20 minutes. But they do this weird physics glitch with the water where it sends them flying through the fucking air. And they basically fly from one end of the map to the other. Like a fucking Morrowind speedrun, right? Notice how there's like no fucking hitches as they're flying through the air. There's no texture pop in or streaming or any of that bullshit. You'll see the different tiles of the world map loading in, but you're never going to see that far ahead in normal gameplay. The fact that it works so well, even in a like a bizarre speedrun glitch like that, is just phenomenal. And it's like Painkiller, the pain engine. is like, why did almost nothing fucking take advantage of that? Stalker's engine, X-Ray, yeah, it's got certain things to it, but a lot of it is just due to the nature of the time, right? There weren't any more multi-core CPUs yet, right? Why the fuck would it have been multi-threaded, right? I mean, a lot of these games will break on modern CPUs without patches or whatever. But some of these games did stuff that was, I mean, even now is mind-blowing, right? Like you don't even really see the shit that Boiling Point did, in 21 years ago now. And so, like a lot of these games, because I'll think of them and I'll search for them, I find out shit that happened 2-3 years ago I didn't even hear about. And like apparently it got released on GOG, and it is, I don't know if they patched or did any updates to it or anything, but yeah, I always loved Euro, like slavjank specifically. But just something, it just always seems to hit right. It's like, Polish, Czech, and like Ukrainian games, just right in that area, and like Russia and all that. Like, what is it with Slavs that just always just do everything correct? And most of them, probably 50% of those are like maybe they were released by a Russian publisher, but they were developed, by Ukrainians, and you know it's like You Are Empty, Stalker, Metro 2033, um, hold on, it's not Stalin Subway. I don't know yeah, like, see, that's the thing. So they have so much overlap in their vibe and like style or whatever that they might as well all be from the same place. If you ask me, it's like, it's just like the Slav, the soul of fucking Slavs or whatever is just is just baked into it. But like Pain Engine, for example, with Painkiller, because I was fucking with it, and the fix that I used kind of in weird ways, it doesn't really break the game because you can still play it, but it just starts acting odd. I always wondered, even back in the day, people talked about how great its engine is, and I always wondered, what if like that's the reason, you know, like what if it's the fact that the game is reliant on your system uptime and will do weird stuff if you try to bypass that. What if that's the reason that it's always been a really good, like performant engine? Because I mean, it had, like normal mapping and all these different fancy effects for the time. They were really pretty brand new. But what was crazy is that Boiling Point put that shit all into this massive open world game that was kind of similar to like Stalker's original design spec. Like Shadow Chernobyl, originally you were supposed to, like, other like random NPCs could like beat the game, right? Like you could essentially play it kind of like a truly free roam thing. And like Boiling Point, you basically can just totally ignore the story and just kind of do whatever you want. But the fact that it works at all is just kind of nuts. But there's so much stuff that goes into game design, um, that you just, if you have an eye for this shit, even if it was buggy, even if it was this or that, you'll still love it for what it was trying to do and what it managed to accomplish, even if it didn't get everything exactly right. Even if it was, you know, I don't know, like just everything is just, it's a holistic thing. And part of the charm is just how kind of hacked together it is. Because I remember that back in the day. Nowadays, you could read about it on TV tropes or watch a YouTube video about it. But back in the day when I was first playing that game and actually like like installing patches for it whenever they got released, back when the game was new, those patch notes were pretty fucking hilarious. Yeah, I think you can still find the originals in different places. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of at the end of this video, I might talk about it more some other time, but yeah, Boiling Point, I fucking love that game.